If you're anything like me, you've been jaded with Team Fortress 2 as of late. It's kind of easy nowadays. I mean, the most interesting content update that got added in the last 6 years was when the item server went down for over a day. It's hard to play the same things over and over knowing that the people behind the scenes just don't care anymore. Especially in this instance, when the game still has a ton more life left in it. Yes, I know the last few updates of maps that got picked were much more properly made than years prior, but if the game already has a ton of maps in it, there needs to be something more worthwhile for me to get excited about. So my attention has been grabbed by other games as of late, including Team Fortress 2. TF2 Classic is a mod of TF2 that brings the game to an earlier state, before all the hats and new weapons, all the new maps and modes, and brings it back to a much more simpler time. Now, my opinion about Team Fortress 2 Classic before wasn't super high. Not that I hated the game or the creators, I just didn't see a point in reverting what TF2 has. So before a few weeks ago, I never once thought to download it or try it. The only big mod for TF2 I've tried was Open Fortress, and that's because it's actually different enough to warrant playing for me. Well, that all changed a few weeks ago when I saw some videos about this custom weapons server that got added to TF2 Classic, and it added over 200 unique weapons into the game that aren't found in TF2 normally. So now I have a reason to actually check out the mod. So first things first, is this mod worth checking out for the custom weapons server alone? Yes. Make no mistake, the server is incredibly fun. I have my gripes with it, don't get me wrong, but I feel like the enjoyment from the mod I get with some of the weapons vastly outweigh the problems I have with it. I've seen some videos talking about the mod, but nothing about going into the specifics of it. Here, I want to tell you about some of the weapons, how they play out, how the server feels, and some gripes I have with it. So for starters, there's a lot of weapons to go over. I'm not going to talk about all of them because we'll be here until next Christmas if I do, but I do want to talk about some notable weapons. Soldier definitely has some good weapons to pick through and a few that change up his playstyle greatly. He has a primary weapon that's a double-barreled shotgun that does massive damage and has several other shotguns in his secondary. The Scout also has several weapons that are fun to work with. My favorite weapon that he has that I've used so far is this crossbow that shoots 2 shots at the same time. It does a massive amount of damage if you hit both shots, and if you need more damage, his secondary dual-wield pistols is perfect for that. They do a ton of damage if you're able to track properly. The crossbow bolt is, of course, a projectile weapon, so it's not impossible to do good damage at long ranges, but up close it does great damage. Pyro has an insanely cool weapon that acts as a minigun. It has a limited range, but the damage is so good on it. It feels odd being a pyro using a weapon style that's built for another class. Speaking of Heavy, I'm gonna have to give the best weapon in the game to Heavy. Heavy has a weapon that is a garbage can that shoots explosive garbage bags. This is the most fun weapon in the game. I'm not a Heavy player at all, and this weapon made me fall in love with the class. The weapon does massive amounts of damage, you can have it revved up without it slowing you down, it shoots bags of garbage. What's not to love about the weapon? Plus, if you pair it with the double-barreled shotgun Heavy has, you can take care of pretty much every class in the game. It's insanely good. Perhaps a bit too good. That's one of the gripes I have with the server. Some of the balancing on these weapons feels a bit fucky at some points. Like for instance, Pyro has this shotgun that shoots incendiary rounds, which is insanely cool. Only issue is that the weapon does jack shit for damage. It's strange having a custom weapon in the server that does less than what an actual weapon in TF2 does. Speaking of, some of the items and maps are a bit glitchy as well. Like look at this one clip where my rocket launcher just doesn't jump me at all. I blasted the ground several times and the weapon just doesn't blast me away for some reason. It's not like it's the feature of the weapon, it blasted me into the air before, and there's this medic melee that is a defibrillator that heals your teammates for a ton of health. Except the times when it just doesn't do it for some reason. It might not help that my ping is over 100 at a minimum. Oh yeah, that's another problem, the ping. So the servers are in Europe. That means the ping is incredibly high for any Americans trying to play. Now I know that's terrible, but my favorite weapon in the mod is the projectile garbage can weapon for Heavy, which is affected by it. So if me having an insanely high ping isn't getting in the way of the enjoyment of the weapon, it should be fine for a lot of people. But I am hoping one of these days there's a server of this made in America, because there are some weapons that could definitely be helped with better ping. Like this one weapon for Demo Man that allows you to shoot a grenade that you can explode with the rifle shot. Now that's cool, but the problem is the amount of ping isn't going to be helping you hit those shots. It does kind of suck being gatekept because I don't live in Europe. Now before you all go on to play the server, here's a fair warning. If it's your first time playing, it will take you a long time to load into the server. For instance, it took me over an hour to get into the server on my first attempt to play, which does make sense. We are adding a ton of stuff into the game in order to play. just be prepared. And one last thing I want to note about this, sometimes when I went to play on the server just wouldn't load for some reason. I don't know if this is something to do with the servers themselves or if it's something to do with the game, but there were times when it took forever to load, even when I downloaded the custom map to play on, which does kind of suck, but these were only a few times and I played on the server a bunch. Back to the actual mod again, this server is incredibly fun. Don't let any of my past gripes that I've shown you dissuade you from even just trying the mod out with your favorite class. I'm more than sure that they added something to your class that's worth not only checking out, but putting time into to get good at. And I'm hoping with the more exposure that this server gets, that the more people want to play on it, hopefully one day there'll be some servers brought over to the States, so even more people will be able to play it. Plus, a lot of these weapons change up how the class is played heavily. Like for instance, you can have a shotgun primary for soldier, a deck of cards as the primary for spy, explosive bow and arrow for sniper. There are tons of different possibilities for these weapons. So if any of these weapons sound fun to you, or if you're getting burnt out on using the same weapons over and over in the main game, you can hop on to TF2 Classic and find the servers in the server browser. We'd love to have people play the game and see what kind of insane weapons that they can find and mess around with. There's something for everyone's main in this game mode, and even more stuff to find outside of your comfort classes. So with that out of the way, here's some fun clips that I got while I was playing the game. It's every time. I'm sorry, it's every time. He hit me with a brick. my god. I'm just hoping some servers come out in America, since playing with over 100 ping does suck, and the server does fill up very quickly. But the game finally feels fresh again, which has been missing from the game for a very long time now. Even if you remove the bots from TF2, the game would still feel a little bit stale with what little stuff has been added in the past few years. When I'm in spectate mode, I see a class use something cool and then I go right to it. Sniper has been reworked so he's not an insta-kill class at any range. He has rifles that headshot but they don't instantly kill. Spy has had the dead ring removed, which I know isn't the server's accomplishment, but do you know how nice it is to kill a spy and they're actually dead? The classes are much more malleable in this server, and not only does the server change how each class gets looked at, but there's plenty of options for more traditional weapons in each of the class's arsenals. It's almost freeing in a sense to play Pyro with a flare gun primary and a shotgun secondary. It's amazing to play Soldier with a shotgun primary that deals massive damage, and it's amazing to play Heavy with a garbage can. Now, does it take a bit to get into each game because of the load times for the custom servers? Yes. Does it take a bit to get used to the ping for the servers? A bit. Do some of the weapons need to be reworked to be made better or worse in some cases? Definitely, but don't let that stop you from trying the server at all. It does a ton of new creative things for the game, and it seems like the creators of it are actively trying to make the game as fun as it can, and I can definitely feel it working. I'm going to play these servers more and definitely get more used to the weapons on it, since I'm in the honeymoon phase of this, and I gotta say it's a lot of fun to try out all of these new weapons. So with that, see you next time.